Good morning, Panthers! My name is Sydney Potter, and I'm with City Year. I serve with Miss Smith's 5th grade class, and today I'm going to be doing a land acknowledgement with all of you. In honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, we do land acknowledgements, which are statements that recognize and show respect to the original Indigenous people who lived on the land that we currently stand on today. Land acknowledgements are a great way to recognize how systemic and institutional powers have oppressed Indigenous peoples and how that oppression still influences today's culture, social, and political climate. So today, I'm going to be honoring the Lenape people. Lenape, meaning the people or true people, are the original people of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They were displaced by Quakers and other colonizers in the late 17th century. They established many villages along the Schuylkill River, cultivating the land and using the river for hunting and fishing. The Lenape land stretches all the way from Delaware to New York City. The Lenape language belongs to a Algonquian family, which is spoken by tribes all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Plains in the United States. Like many tribes around the United States, the Lenape people lived off hunting and fishing and gathering wild plants. Hunters would use large bow and arrows and big wooden clubs to catch animals. They were also agricultural people, so they would raise their own corn, beans, sunflowers, and other crops. If you wanted to know what they wore and what they used to keep warm, they made big blankets out of the skin of local animals like beavers and raccoons, and feathers from animals like turkey and goose. A common practice in Lenape culture was tattooing. People would have these great tattoos of animals that the tribe would honor. They'd also have depictions of war for warriors. So if you fought in any war, the Lenape people would come home and they'd get a picture tattooed on their chest or on their back or on their arms of all the things that they seen and done during the war. They lived in these big round houses called wigwams. Wigwams were these big round huts that were big enough so many family members could share their own house. Have you ever seen those large feather headdresses that are normally associated with Indigenous people? Well, the Lenape did not have that. Instead, Lenape wore beaded headbands that were decorated with feathers, and that would show honor. The only people who would have giant headdresses or bigger headbands with many more feathers were chiefs and people who had high status. Lenape women wore long braids, and the men wore mohawks. Colonization for the Lenape people was a bit different from the other tribes. Fun fact about the Lenape, they were the very first Native American tribe to sign a treaty or a deal with the United States government. They did this in 1778. When William Penn founded Pennsylvania, he made a deal with the Lenape that would take all of their land in Pennsylvania and made them stay on designated land in New Jersey. Though the Lenape were peaceful people, since they made the deal with the United States, they had to fight in American wars. They mainly traded and sold crops, clothing, and animals with the new settlers. But doing this, that means that they were exposed to many diseases, which wiped out about 90% of the Lenape people. The land that the Lenape lived on, Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, was sold for what would be totaled of $24 today. Over a period of 250 years, many Lenape people were removed and dispersed throughout the country. Some took refuge in other tribes, but a large number of the Lenape people remained in their homelands and continued to practice the traditions that their ancestors practice today. Today, the Lenape people are all over Turtle Island, which is what they used to call the United States. There is very large Lenape land in Oklahoma. So with that information, I'd like to make a land acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Alexander K. Elementary occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary land of the Lenape people. We recognize, support, honor, and advocate for the sovereignty of those who were forcibly removed from their homeland of Pennsylvania. Thank you, and have a good day, Panthers.